Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. So another story we will dig right into because we've of course talked about Venezuela countless times before. We predicted things and it's come true, and we've got a bit of a different angle on Venezuela today, but it all goes under the same kind of dialogue that we've spoken of before, because Venezuela has raised the minimum wage for the fifth time in a year. Now, it's kind of mind-boggling. It's mind-numbing, really, that we keep having to go through this because they think, maybe more government's going to help. Maybe more government's going to help. It's like, oh, yeah, let's do more quantitative easing. That'll stop this insane inflation rate, which was, 1,700 or 17,000% free market value. What was it?
Well, it's hovering around there right now. Like, from what I've seen with the black market Bitcoin exchange values. So, it's hovering straight around there. It's definitely not the 180% that the government has been claiming. Even the IMF says it's 700-800 for sure, but it's way above that.
Yeah, and the IMF's pretty dishonest in themselves. Yeah. I mean, this is just so insane what people are dealing with in Venezuela. Because first of all, raising the minimum wage is going to cause more unemployment for
and
one.
More inflation.
More inflation. I mean, what we're seeing is just a basic, almost communist. I think it's about there now. Basically, at about communist overtaking of Venezuela. So we have bread lines. We have allowed amounts of food. We have they don't have toilet paper in most places. People are drinking out of gutters. There's bread lines. There's bread and circuses.
There was a very interesting video that I saw, and I don't think it was BuzzFeed. There was something else buzz, but they actually gave people, they were going to give them a Venezuelan cuisine, basically. And what they gave them the government's, food packages that they get when they get the handouts in the bread lines, as we were talking about. People were like, what the fuck is this?
Oh,
people were really, they were like, I heard there's something going on down there. Like, they were very uncertain, but, it's terrible. The people reacted with what the hell is going on? Why are you giving me this?
But I'm sorry, but why are they still surprised by this? I mean,
this was kind of a left leaning, online program that did this. Of
just
course,
remember that Venezuela was the utopia for socialists for so long.
Bernie Sanders who claimed it. Of course, Abby Martin was,
Yeah, it's stupid though. It's just so it's mind-boggling stupid because what they have done to their people is disgusting. They've pushed them into absolute debt and inflation, and what happens when that happens? Well, people come begging on their knees for help from the state, and then the state basically makes the problems worse. So it's a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, and repeat. So they have all these problems at the hand of the state. So they come back and say, well, maybe if we do this and this and this, or if we get the government to do this and this and this, we'll be saved. But really all that does is cause the same problem that they're trying to get out of in the first place. It is absolute insanity what is happening in Venezuela, and I feel so bad for the people that don't condone this. I feel so bad for the people that don't want a full communist revolution happening in Venezuela, because it seems like a lot of the populace, and I know there's a lot of people in Venezuela watching this video, and I don't mean you, but for the most part, there are a ton of people in Venezuela that just want more government to solve this problem of too much government, and it just goes in circles and causes more of a problem.
This brings us to when we go out to a lot of demonstrations and so on. Most demonstrations that me and Josh have been out to, and Josh has been out to so many more than me, it all comes down to begging the government to do something.
Yeah.
Stop that behavior. You're just going to create more government, and the government is just growing. It's perpetuating itself. It's just an entity that's going to swell until it's. Okay, let me describe government quickly like this. Government is like an organism, like a bacteria, that would grow and expand until the food source is totally depleted, and then it will collapse in on itself. Yeah. That is what government is. Yeah. Very well explained from nature itself, where you overextend your reach and everything, and you can't sustain yourself with the private sector paying all these taxes, so it collapses in on itself. And I just want to... we were talking about the 5 times hike of minimum wage. Well, this I don't even know what to say anymore, because now Venezuela is confirming a $5 billion bond issue. Who in their most sanest mind would ever buy a Venezuelan bond. I guess Obama maybe, because he put out an executive order that Venezuela was a threat to the national security of the U.S. government. So maybe the U.S. government and U.S. banks are putting in some money just to, keep Maduro, fed to really like push forward to create his utopian totalitarian government, which is turning very fast into right now.
While he's living in a palace, these people are drinking out of gutters, and that is basically socialism in a nutshell. And same with communism, we see the same thing. It's socialism for the rich, and it's death for the poor, debt for the poor, destruction, poverty, absolute hunger, starvation. I mean, this is exactly what happens in most socialist states eventually. I'm not saying that it's happening right now in all of the socialist states, but it's always evolving, and it always turns to this situation eventually. And of course, it gets down to that monetary manipulation, which causes debt and devaluation, and of course massive inflation, like we've seen. Print money out of thin air, or currency, not money, and you end up with this mess every time. And hundreds of times it's happened, and it always will happen, because all fiat currencies will eventually revert to its true value of zero.
And well, that's exactly what is happening. And I just want to read quickly the rest of the article. It's not a huge article at all. It just says state-run Banco de Venezuela bought the notes in local currency at the heavily subsidized exchange rate of 10 bolivars per dollar. Like heavily, yeah, exactly. We talked about this before. We showed you the real inflation in Venezuela and the real exchange rate if you look at the black market. Mm-hmm. According to a source familiar with the deal on Monday. That would mean that a no net increase in hard currency for state coffers, even as OPEC nation struggles with triple-digit inflation, Soviet-style product shortages, and low oil prices. A one-sentence finance ministry statement confirmed on December 29th with the coupon, so the percentage on this is 6.5%. If you even were to put a percentage on that debt with the risk it is, you would have to put 10,000%, because that's the real risk of investing in Venezuelan bonds. It's just insanity of putting it at 6.50. That's almost like a high risk mortgage lender. Here, these guys are completely bankrupt. I don't know why somebody would even consider it. And two bond traders who seen preliminary details of issue said the operation was underwritten by China's Haitong Securities. And of course, the Chinese guys, they can print a ton of currency and help out their little brother over in Venezuela. They're commies. The communist Chinese, they'll help out their friends. They make sure that Venezuela could really put in a communist government, totalitarian communist government.
Yeah,
they're very familiar with it.
Well, I would say, just from my bottom line perspective, is that I really do believe that you should just let the economy collapse. It's horrible, but it has to happen eventually, and the sooner the better. And build up from scratch at a free market level, voluntary level. Allow. I shouldn't even have to say allow. I mean, it's free. It's a free market, and you build up businesses that way. You build up wealth that way. More people will be out of poverty. More people will be prospering. There will be competition and innovation, and less people will be sick. And you'll create a vast wealth of different inventions and technological marvels, because people will be competing against each other to do the best version of everything and invent the next best thing and compete against each other and create an amazing, beautiful world. You won't see the kind of monopolies you see. You won't see it's such a hefty government GDP. And of course, I go into this further in my new video, what an anarchist economy looks like 50 years later. So I want you guys to check that out. It's my Anarchapulco submission for their scholarship contest. But I mean, we can go into this forever. It's just so sickening. We've gone into Venezuela so many times over the last year, and we've been right over and over again. Unfortunately, we've been vindicated, but it just keeps getting worse.
Well, the funny thing is, I wrote about this in my book, The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us. Mm-hmm. And actually in there, I wrote, because I knew this was going to happen, I said, as you read this book, you will probably see either a currency collapse or devaluation or something similar happening in Venezuela.
Oh, absolutely. And you were right about a lot of stuff in your book, John. And
History is right about stuff, not me.
Well, and I mean, it's beyond fundamentals, but it's obvious when you see how when you create currency out of thin air and you cause all these problems, it always ends the same way.
We never learn.
No, you never learn. It's coming up on the 1,000th year anniversary of fiat paper, which goes back to 1024 in China. And here we are 1,000 years later, and what have we learned? Nothing. And it's because the vast populace doesn't understand how economics works, even the most basic form of economics, because they've been indoctrinated in school. They don't learn about it in school, and in universities they teach us Keynesianism that perpetuates every problem, and that in Marxism as well.
Well, legal tender, like making a currency law, that is enslavement right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Competing currencies for the win, guys. We will be back at you with much more. Thanks, John, for this. Sad, but we need to know about this stuff. This information is vital. So you can check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated. And of course, as we mentioned before, check the link, the reference link in the description and in the comments for Anarchapulco, where you can save 10% on your tickets to Anarchapulco by typing in promo code WHAM. That's WAM. And hopefully I will see you there. You can check out our Send Josh to Anarchapulco GoFundMe as well, because I'm trying very hard to get down there and interview tons of people and give you a ton of information. Of course, I'll be meeting with Jeff Berwick, who went to Venezuela and saw the hyperinflation for himself, alongside with Luke Rudowski, who I'll also be talking to, who had stacks of money and they were weighing this currency, and it's just they did an excellent job of breaking that down. So you could check out their video on that as well.
True investigative reporting.
Yeah, what we saw in Venezuela. So we will be back at you with much more. There's always stuff in the news. And thank you again, John. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Bye.